It's with great, immense pleasure that I have this galaxy of panelists. The word panelist is actually very misused, underused. It does not reflect at all what the word really means to me. I have with me Uma Ganesh. Uma has been a part of our journey, of the Hope Foundation journey, for the last 20 years with her husband, Ganesh. They have been well wishers. In the last few years that I have met and interacted with Anurag, I've seen a dynamic person with a different background work in the world of media. And what I learned from him is to be agile, to move, quick thinking, quick decisions, and promptness. And ABBA for me is the India today that I look for, that I aspire for all my Indian girls, for all the girls, to become not like ABBA, but an ABBA and all that she stands for, the new young women of India. Thank you so much for accepting our invite. Without much ado, we all know what innovation and leadership is all about. We can forever discuss, is it a science or is it an art? And whether it is a technique or whether it's a philosophy. And we know that it combines different leadership styles to influence the organization and for the organization and the employees to be productive with creative ideas, with to invent and to innovate. The key role in the practice of innovation leadership is the innovation leader. I see in all three of you innovation leaders, and that is why you were my first choice for this afternoon's webinar. Where did I learn the words innovation and leadership? I'll just go back to my heritage or my ancestry for just 2 minutes. I'm fortunate to be the daughter of a leading businessman of this country who came to India at the age of 13 before partition, Prahlad P. Chhapriya. Prahlad P. Chhapriya was born in Pakistan, and at the age of 13, when his father passed away, was sent to India to earn money to keep the family together, to earn for the siblings. He started his life as a house help and a 10 rupee and an office help and a 10 rupee salary. And from there, he came to a stage where Phenolics is a conglomerate of different products, different industries, and a household name in this country. Innovation and leadership came to me in everyday life. It was not a tagline, it was not a line that I learned in the management school. It was something that I saw and I learned and I imbibed in my growing years. So, what better way to remember and pay homage to our chairman, Sri P.P. Chhapriya, founder chairman, than have a discussion on this? Why this topic? So typically we have two, as you just heard, we have two engineering colleges, one in Pune and one in Nagari. And it is our job, I think, to be able to influence and to bring together people who will be able to share their thoughts and experiences with the students. Now, is innovation and leadership, is being a leader a trait that you're born with? Or is it a trait that you pick up along the way? Or is it something that you strive and work and face all the challenges? As far as I know, every successful person in his autobiography or biography has written that they have risen through challenges and tough times. And this is exactly what I would like you to share, at what it took you to be in the place that you are today. Can we start with Uma? Hand over to you, Uma.
Sure. Thank you, Aruna, for setting the context, and it's indeed my privilege to be part of this discussion today. As Aruna mentioned, we have had the opportunity to watch Aruna's education institution take off and also observe very closely how Aruna has innovated herself and has excelled in leadership, both in the academic field as well as in the social transformation, from the social transformation perspective. So it's indeed a pleasure to be part of this discussion and relate to the question that you posed, which is innovation an inborn characteristic, or do you actually work upon it as you go along. From my own journey, Aruna, I would look at innovation from the perspective of it's not just something that you get up one day and say, okay, I want to innovate myself. But there are certain traits and certain attitude and mental abilities that you develop and you consciously try to work upon them over the years. That actually enables you to distinguish yourself, to stand out. And that is what innovation is all about from an individual's perspective, to remain relevant and to be able to be counted upon by the organization or by the society for whatever work that you are doing. So if I were to reflect along those lines as to how I have evolved, I would say learning, observing, and trying to reinvent myself from time to time. These have been the cornerstones of my own journey. In my very first stint as a management trainee in a manufacturing organization that I was part of, when I joined this organization, I was supposed to be working in the marketing department. But in a matter of almost a year or so, an opportunity came along when they said, well, we want you to be part of the finance department. Then came an opportunity for me to be part of the IT department. So, although I was not really trained for some of these functions, those opportunities I really am extremely grateful for in terms of what I could pick up and what I could become over a period of time. Very similar to this was the time when both Abha and Anurag, both of you are part of the media business. But when I was almost 10 years into my corporate life, almost 15 years into my corporate life, the whole television boom was happening. And I had an opportunity to become part of the media business, of which I knew nothing about. But the very excitement of being able to do something with this medium and opened the doors for me to be part of the Z group. And I had the opportunity to set up Z Education and ran it for almost 7 years. So right from learning what it is to think of concepts for television, looking at how to really create a distinctive opportunity for education in the television media at a time when that wasn't really that popular. It gave me immense opportunity and confidence, not only to learn about media, but also to think about what are the qualities one had to imbibe to act as an entrepreneur and also as an entrepreneur eventually. So I can go on and talk about other such experiences that I've had over the years. But I would say that every time the opportunity knocks at your door, being able to take on such an opportunity and say, hey, let me plunge into it, let me learn to swim, and let me get on to the other side and become a different person. That has really finally brought me to where I am here today, which is bringing together skills and digital and learning, and of course, making transformative impact, whether it is for the corporate or for the individual or for the society. So that's how all these learnings have come together and helped me become a different human being. Over to you, Aruna.
Thank you, Uma. You rightly said we have to know when the opportunity knocks on the door, how to open the door and grab the opportunity. Anurag, I've been seeing you for the last few years, and the bundle of energy and the number of hours and the projects that you juggle side by side. It makes me wonder how you do it. Anurag, please share with us your experiences.
Arunaji, thank you for being kind, and thank you for believing in me in spite of, I am a madman. I have no qualms in saying I am quite mad. First of all, I want to tell you that, Umaji, I was in a business school called MDI, and I remember I told this story to you when I met you last year with Dr. Ganesh Natarajan. And I even went for a job from my campus. I got a job in Ashan Desai's listed company. In fact, I now do a daily show on NewsX the last 3 months. And Ashank was on my show, and during the break, I was telling him, by the way, I got a job at your, and in a very polite, nice way, in a grateful way, not in a pompous, very Punjabi way, very non-Punjabi way, I would say. So, while I'm grateful to you that, I share the same screen as you. And, Abba, I met around 12 odd years back. She was working for Business Today, right? You're working for Business Today around 12 years back. I had started a media school with a media owner friend of mine, Mr. Atul Maheshwari, who was the owner of Amar Ujala. The reason I say who was, because through a freak medical case, he went to heaven. I mean, he was absolutely fine. And I can say two people who had a role in my life is one, your boss in the media, is Subhashji, who I really look up to. And, not many people know his private side. I know he's a very kind man. So I'm very grateful. I met Abba, and she was doing a story, and then she was writing for Times of India in between, right?
Yeah, I was doing a lot of different things, yes.
And she came to my media school, I met her, and then subsequently, because in media I met her, so I've known her, so don't interact enough. But last I met her at the Taj Mahal Tea House in Bandra, which is her favorite joint.
That's what I meant about scheduling, because he'll always find that half an hour window somewhere in his day to fit you in, I'm here between.
I normally stay in the hotel next door. I get bored in the hotel, so I come out. So I bump in. And Aruna ji was introduced to me by about 3 years back by a young friend of mine. He is now 32 or 33, but I met him when he was 9. His boss, his father happened to be my boss at HTA. But I spend more time with Samyak than I do with his father for no reason. I mean, I just learned so much from Samyak. And he introduced me, and we had, I am a strange character. I'm unique. Everyone is unique. And for me, intent matters. When I say something, I have complete intent. So first of all, just wanted to say, and I've collaborated with Aruna ji to put up the India Booklet Fest. I believe whatever little I have achieved is because I've read more. And today I was reflecting. Yesterday was my birthday and my daughter's birthday. My daughter completed her 16th year and she started her 17th year. And I was reflecting late in the night, and my parents were, and my friends, we were talking till 2 a.m. and both my parents were in full flow. They were regaling my friends, and for a change, I was quiet and listening and low on energy, right? And I felt so good. I mean, I really felt so good seeing my parents so happy. So one thing I was telling a friend of mine, homes that are happy homes, automatically people do well. I mean, there is no, everyone's journey is special, whatever way it happens. So I'm not saying that's the only way. Whatever is your journey is special. So I was reflecting upon it. I don't reflect too much. I was born in Haryana. There, they don't even think before doing. After doing, there's no question, thinking. But I'm in the doing mode mostly. But around your birthday, you tend to be introspective. So I'd say to you, one. Then 3 days back, I was talking to the boy who's become the world's greatest calculator. I'm an angel investor in company. He's the cousin of the founder. So he said, would you like to do an interview? I said, I'd love to. And I talked to him. I couldn't believe he's 20. I mean, he had more maturity than I have possibly now. He had more clarity. He had more experiences. And he said he started working on it when he was 5 years old. He had an accident. He was bedridden for a year and he started playing puzzles because he was bedridden. He had nothing to do. And he turned an adversity into a opportunity. And he said, I will be the best in this. And from the age of 13 till the age of 20, he's done well. At 20, he's reached the pinnacle. He won a lot of competition. So I want to say a couple of things related to it. One, you have to be happy. If you're happy, you'll automatically do the right things. If you have the right support system, if you're single, that's okay. That's, you have the right friends, parents, family. Whatever is your support system, you need a support system. It can be friends, it can be parents, it can be brothers, sisters, different. So I think that second is, I really believe whatever is in your subconscious happens. So whatever you tell yourself in my case, whatever I wanted has happened. So these days I'm dreaming bigger, and I'm also hoping dreaming right, So third thing, I say everyone should have a PhD when they start in life. How can you have a PhD when you start in life? The PhD is, I have a permanent head damage. That's why I'm Dr. Batra, permanent head damage, both in terms of hair and what is inside. But PhD stands for passion, hunger, desire. I work hard because I have a dream. I also enjoy what I do. So I have said this to you and at your forums, that choose a hobby that is your profession. Confucius said, if you make your hobby your profession, you don't have to work. I mean, I'm fond of reading, writing, meeting people. I mean, is there any other better profession? And I meet an eclectic set of people. I'm sure Abba meets an eclectic set of people. And they're all elements. There are elements of deal making, there are elements of human connection, there are elements of intellect. And so it's perfect. And I did not work in this domain for the first 4 years of my life. After the business school, I worked in different domains. Fourth thing I'd say, and maybe I'd sound old-fashioned, the harder you work, the luckier you get. Because students, I want to say, there's no shortcut to hard work. I mean, this boy who won at 20 started working when he was 5. The next thing I want to say is, if you can dream it, you can do it. It sounds like cliche, but it's true. Whatever in my life, good or bad, if I visualize, I've achieved, right? I also want to say that you have to live a life that is 8 days a week. That's the title of my book. I'm finally bringing it out, though I still work more on other things than my book in the lockdown. It's a metaphor for loving what you do and doing what you love. If you work 8 days a week, you can't work. But if you enjoy 8 days a week, you'll work 8 days a week. So that's a metaphor. Third is, I don't believe in education is great, but learning is more important. And I don't have to explain that. So when you come to a college that the Hope Foundation has, there are 2 outcomes you're looking. One is learning, the other is jobs. You have to focus a bit on all. I want to end by saying 2 things, which are one is, you have to believe you're lucky. If you believe you're lucky, you get lucky. And I'll tell you a small story, which I wrote in an impact anniversary issue. Luckily, my editor called and she said, it's the luck issue. I said, I have a perfect story for you. So I go a lot to temples. I haven't been there in 5.5 months, not even on my birthday yesterday. But I normally go to a lot of temples. And I had a young astrologer with me. He's my closest friend. I met him 7-8 years back, but I spent most time with him. So he's my closest friend these days. I have childhood friends and my college mates, but my dad is checking what I'm doing, but that's okay. He must be looking for something in the house, which he thinks is in this room. So, we went to a Ganesha temple in Delhi. Sarojini Nagar, there is a Ganesha temple, the Lord Vinayak temple. And I go there a lot. And this was May 2016. Praveen was with me. We came out and my daughter has told me I can't give cash to beggars. I cannot encourage begging. I give money. So I stopped, but I told them that, would you like to eat an ice cream? So all of those 18 kids said yes. So I took them to the ice cream vendor who was standing there. And 12 of them took the base ice cream that I gave them, the 10 rupee ice cream. But 6 of them stood their ground. They wanted a cassata or an ice cream that cost 40, 50, 35 bucks. And I tried to bully them and say, I'll go away. I started. But they kept coming at me and they stood their ground. Eventually, I gave in and I gave them the ice cream they wanted. Now, me and Praveen sat and we discussed the role of luck versus destiny. Everybody's luck had an ice cream for them. But the ones that made an effort to get what they wanted created the destiny that they wanted for them. And I wrote it in the article. And my last point, I believe I'm a little old-fashioned. I'm also old. Intent matters. If your intent is good, even things are delayed, it's okay. I look at a person's intent. It doesn't happen immediately, it's okay. But what matters is what a piece I wrote about 10 years back for Entrepreneur magazine called The Introduction Capital. And the gist of that article is that if you help other people grow, God helps you grow. I've made so many introductions over the years to people and they've gone out to get married, done business together, get hired, but it's their destiny. I'm only, so it shouldn't go to your head that, oh, you are some God who's making things happen, orchestrator. There is a higher power if you have good intent. So if you follow these things, and dare I say, reduce screen times, do only one thing at a time. It's tough for me, even me. I look at my WhatsApp, but I try not. I'm talking, when she was talking, I was doing my WhatsApp, I'll be honest. But I have a load of messages to respond from yesterday. But I try and these days do one thing at a time and do it really well. Everything else will happen. Name, fame, if you just, when you're doing something, you give it your 100%, magic happens. And we are in COVID time, so I'd say, I'd leave you with a thought. I really believe in it, and in my life I practice it, is that whenever there is rains, look for the rainbow. Whenever there are clouds, look for the stars. So this is a time that shall too pass. We will be in better times, maybe in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. Spend time with your loved ones. I have spent 15 days every month out of my home. I spend more time with my parents than I have ever had. So I'm really grateful for that. I've been able to focus on my work more than I have ever done. So thank you. That's what I wanted to say. Back to Abba. Back to Abba. Back to Abba. Understood.
Okay.
You know,
Thank you.
my
Thank you,
my
Anurag.
my guy who work with me is opening the other door coming from it, trying to give me the phone. So I'm telling him, take away the phone.
Thank you, Anurag. Can I just say one thing? When you say madman and when you say strange person, these are the adjectives you said you used to describe yourself. Do you
In a
know?
good way. I mean it in a good way. I talk
Yeah,
well to myself. I am unique.
but
No, I'm unique. I'll do things last minute, but I will deliver. That's how I'm built.
but do you know? I consider myself mad, and the other word for mad is passionate. And you said passion is part of the PhD. So the dots connect, Anurag. It's only if you're mad or passionate or strange, but with the correct intent, you get where you want to go. I completely agree with you, Anurag. Over to you, Abba. We have Ganesh and I'm sorry, we have Uma and we have Anurag who were from very different fields, academic backgrounds, and from where they went, where they were to where they went and where they choose to go. You have always been a part of the media, the creative, the screenwriting. You chose that as your first love. Did you waver at your decision at any point of time? Do you ever think that this was a good idea? What was it that led you to this?
So it's interesting, I always knew what I wanted to do, but I think the path probably took a lot of twists and turns. And I don't think I had a preconceived notion as to, how it would evolve, but I think some of the twists and turns did surprise me, and I think I knew I always wanted to be in journalism. I actually studied media and communications and did a master's in theater and film side by side, which also involved a lot of writing and so forth. Always wanted to get into journalism, same as Anurag, in the sense I think a lot of journalists, they either love writing or they love traveling and they love meeting people. These are some of the things that really make us. And it's a curiosity. It's a curiosity for life. It's a curiosity to discover and to really live through a whole different variety of experiences. And that's how you learn. You learn about the world, you learn about people, and that helps you to kind of build on something along the way. I started working with Business Today, as Anurag mentioned, and soon after I sort of got into television with NDTV Profit. It was actually quite a big break for me at the time because Profit was launching. It was a young channel, and so they were open to training 2-3 of us youngsters as anchors. So it was a very lucky break because I think otherwise and internationally you'd have to spend many years before you actually got to be on screen. But I got into sort of business journalism and it always stuck. However, I originally thought that I would want to be on the field more and reporting more. I gradually grew into doing a lot of on location interviews and so forth. But studio anchoring definitely did become quite a mainstay of my career. And over time, I sort of took a few detours. I went to Good Times for a year. I took a gap year. I did a few different things. I set up my own company. Now I've gone back as a consultant. So I think having experienced the industry from so many different perspectives, channels, I think what I'd like to share with your audience is that today, particularly, I think we have the advantage of really being able to try out anything. There was a time when it was considered to be a negative or a fallback, that you're not focused or you haven't spent, 4 or 5 years at a given place. But today, I think having more experiences, having more skills is really appreciated. And I think that's a huge positive because a lot of us today have many interests. And especially for women, I don't think there's anything that should stop you from feeling you can explore those interests. I think particularly given the current work from home environment, a lot of women are finding opportunities to do things or set up businesses, or people are suddenly finding fruit to their ideas because they are at home and they're finding that they're able to, nothing stopping them, you know. And I think leadership in the future is this is where it's born, and this is what it's going to be all about. It's about what matters to you, what resonates with you, what you feel is going to impact people, impact lives. And you know, I'll stop there, but I think that it just opens up a whole plethora of opportunities to those of you that are studying right now and growing up today. I know that when you're in COVID and with all of this uncertainty, it seems, you know, probably a little nerve-wracking, but I'm sure we'll all be back to normal very soon, and sometime early next year, so you can go out there and fulfill those dreams.
Thank you, Ava. I completely agree with you that it's up to you to decide that this is what I want to do, and you can do anything. So this is the one message I'm sure our students will understand and resonate with. Uma, coming back to you, did you ever hesitate before when you were shifting gears from, say, banking to education? Did it ever bother you, or did it ever the thought ever come to you, what if this doesn't work?
Agna, if you were to look at how I have taken decisions right from the time I finished my undergraduate studies, and this is something that might be of interest to a lot of students who are particularly in places like Ratnagiri, where sometimes you feel that growing up in a small town, you feel, am I going to get all the opportunities as somebody who's living in a large city would have? And sometimes you feel that I need to get out of this town and go see the big world outside. That's exactly the spot I was when I finished my undergraduate studies. And I wanted to go see this big bad world. And imagine, I mean, I'm talking about in the late 70s, when it was not something which would have been seen as a you know, natural thing to do, or something that would have been very common. But I wanted to get out of that small town kind of situation and explore the world. And I remember when I went over to Delhi, and I was growing up in a small town called Pondicherry. Today people know about this place, but those days many people did not know where Pondicherry existed. So when I went from Pondicherry to Delhi for my interview at the Faculty of Management Studies, you know, the interviewers, they looked at me and they said, you know, you're coming from this small town and you're coming to Delhi. And just then there was this, a very horrific incident had taken place in Delhi, which involved a young brother and sister who were murdered. Geeta Chopra was the little girl, and her brother. They were both murdered in Delhi. And so they said, I mean, why would you want to come to Delhi? And, you know, this place is going to be very difficult for someone like you to adjust. But I said, no, I'm keen to come and see, and let me see what it holds for me. And finally, I got through the interview, and this is how I had looked at my journey. At every juncture, wherever there has been more of a risk, I have pursued that risk. And out of that risk, I have always seen something working out. So I did very well with that opportunity. I stood in the merit list that they put out. I stood second in the merit list of admission at Faculty of Management Studies. And in those days, there were only those, you know, IMs and then FMS, Bajaj, XLRA, and there were hardly any management schools at that time. So when you talk about how did I make the transition from banking to education, I have done several such transitions, not knowing what is really in store for me at the other end. And the thrill of that adventure, when I said I moved from banking to manufacturing, I moved from manufacturing to education to media. And then, of course, from media to IT and BPO and so on and so forth. So, as Anurag said earlier, it's not that everybody needs to therefore, get into something in a blindfolded fashion. Even when you're jumping into something which you are not fully familiar with, there will be 2 or 3 things which you feel you can do well, and there'll be 2 or 3 things you don't know anything about. So it's that confidence of saying, okay, I'm going to take my previous experience of managing people, or my understanding about how to run the business, or my passion for learning. There's some of those kind of traits that you carry forward with you. And at the same time, you have to have some kind of a goal why you're trying to make this change. It's not just, you wanting to jump from one to the other just like that. So when I moved from HSBC to wanting to become an entrepreneur, I saw within HSBC environment also talent which was in short supply, whether it was India, China, Philippines, all of those countries. I had and other countries in Asia that I had opportunity to travel extensively and work with young people in those countries. And I found that country after country had similar problem that India faced, which is, where is the right talent? Did they have the right skills? And the corporates having to have the struggle. Governments and individuals in the societies having the struggle to make them employable. So that is the reason I told myself that I need to now look at this problem from that sort of a perspective to try and do something about it. And when I thought about setting up the venture, I was fortunate also that Intel and Cisco came forward and they said, okay, we will support you. And that's how I was able to start this venture. And over the last 10 years, we have managed to impact almost 500,000 people, making them employable. It is a small drop in the ocean when you look at the huge problem that is there in front of us. And particularly during COVID time, all of us are conscious about many of these youngsters losing jobs, many of the companies saying you need to upskill yourself. So this sort of a requirement for skilling, upskilling, reinventing yourself, this is going to remain the main focus area, not only for our country, but very many even developing countries and developed countries. So as youngsters who are part of this program today, one thing I would like to emphasize for everybody's benefit is that all of you are extremely fortunate to be part of I Square IT, or you're part of the college in Ratnagiri. But your learning should not really stop when you finish your education. That learning has to be continuous. And it is only when we continuously skill ourselves that we can keep ourselves relevant. And that is something that I have learned. And particularly in today's context, when we are looking at all of this digital, the whole world is going digital, the businesses are going digital, education has gone digital, everything around us is digital. We need to also think about developing other capabilities to succeed and to remain relevant in this digital era, which means you need to develop the analytical skills, ability to understand a whole range of data that is going to come to you. How do you work with the data? How do you develop those mindsets to look at those insights and become more smarter in decision making? So these and many such traits we'll have to consciously develop, and this will involve continuous learning. So that is what I have been doing, Aruna, to answer your, maybe I answered it in an extended, I took a long time to answer this question, but it is that excitement, it is about that passion to make a difference, and it is ultimately, as they say, devil is in the details, to develop that sort of a mindset to get granular in whatever you do. That is how you try to achieve perfection and try to become successful in whatever you are trying to do.
I want to give an example here as well, because I want to talk about the importance of failure. And just take a look at Elon Musk, right? He's worth $96 billion today, okay? And talking about innovation and leadership, I mean, what better example do you want? This is somebody who's failed multiple times over. Even today, he has as many critics as he does those that are huge fans of his. He's now the 4th richest man in the world, right? And he's had this. What do people love about him? They love this perpetual quest to make a successful Tesla, as well as a space rocket that's going to be beneficial for all of mankind. They love his vision, they love his energy. So, but the point is that he tried, he believed in something, and he's trying and trying again, and he fails along the way, and it doesn't matter, you just get back up and you try again. And that's really what innovation is all about, right?
Correct, Abba. I'm completely agreeing with you. And the example you gave of Elon Musk and what he's done to the cars without petrol today, it's a breakthrough technology and it's futuristic. And who would have thought of it, say, 5 years, 8 years, 10 years back? But this is one man with his thinking, with his vision and his perpetual quest, is the word you used, and the energy, that he was able to bring this kind of product into the world. Uh, Tell me, Abba, who have been the people who have influenced you into thinking differently, into thinking creatively?
Sure. So
There
it's
must be
interesting,
some.
I'm actually, no, but I'm so happy you've asked me this, because I think that there is a problem of leadership, at least when it comes to the media industry. I'm so glad at least no one's watching live from my industry. They can watch it later and throw brickbats at me. But I say this from the point of view also of a lot of youngsters who I've worked with, who look for leadership. I think I'm not saying that there are no good leaders. Obviously there are, but I don't think there are as many that we would like to see. And I think part of it may be to do with the fact that it's an industry that is built a lot on individual personalities, possibly. But I think that, today people look for leaders who inspire them and also are willing to listen to them, right? Leaders don't have to always know everything. They may well know, but they also have to be open to hearing from others. There has to be this culture of collaboration, because this is the era that we're now entering. And I think that's really important, to encourage others to step up, to think, to share ideas, to also make them feel comfortable enough that, okay, even if this idea doesn't work, we'll try something else, or it's good you suggested that. But it's really about making that combined effort and creating that culture. I think for me, the people that have always stood out, and I've always been a little, well, you wouldn't think it, but a little eccentric or offbeat in terms of just, I think, the kind of people I resonate with. And I've always looked to, over the years, those people that I've either come across in my career, or I think my first boss back at Business Today was someone I really looked up to, because is Sukumar, who, because he always has, he later went on to become the editor of Mint, and now I think he's moved on from there. But I mean, just look at that. Look at the property he created and the kind of positioning that paper has. It did what nobody else thought was possible, which was to create a fresh magazine-style daily pink paper to compete along the, among the likes of Economic Times, for example. And it's really done well. He always had a very different way of thinking. It would be the same story, but he'd find a different angle to it, and he'd make it sound so interesting, right, that you just felt, this is a story I have to do, and this is something people are going to want to read. And I think for me, that's really stuck. I think even today, whether I do things, in my own work or for other platforms, I think what I really get excited about are those stories that I feel people want to hear. And I think bringing out those very authentic, real stories is important, and it's what people also resonate with. Today, content is so easily available. Today, everyone can access a lot of things for themselves. But when you're able to show them things in a new light or a different perspective, I think that adds a valuable layer.
So Abha, I completely agree with you, where the leader today is a leader is a person who actually listens to his people. Like you said, he may not know everything about everything, but he's willing to learn from people. He knows that there are people who are experts and is willing to listen to their advice or at least hear them out. And the culture of collaboration, yes, no man is an island, and today it is a question of how do we bring the best, draw the best out of each other, and depend on each other in the most beneficial way for the organization. Uma, tell me what, who, who has influenced you, or who has been your role model, or the people that you have looked up to in all these years?
Actually, Aruna, when I was beginning my career, or when I was just trying to get myself acclimatized with the corporate environment, if I were to think back upon those years, I can't really call out a particular person and say he or she was my hero or a role model. But as Abha mentioned, what I think was important from my perspective was to look at learning from various people around me, something good that you find in each of them, and try to see how you could become a better person. So very often when we look at when we talk about leadership, or when we talk about leaders, we think leaders are up there, they are somewhere there. And how do I get to become a leader? So my grandmother made one point very clear to all of us right from our early age, that you can be a leader whatever age you are, whatever you're doing. So in that sense, it is self-belief that you want to do the best, and in your own little way, whatever you're trying to do. If you are starting off in your career as an executive, you are asked to prepare a report. When you do that report extremely well, you feel very good about it. And that is an inherent capability a leader has to bring out. So if we start looking at those little things which we start perfecting, then you start building those leadership skills in yourself. And slowly you start influencing 2 people around you. You influence and manage a team of 3 people with you. This is how you build confidence in yourself and people around you. And that is how I think I kind of evolved. But I would like to mention that one person who has left significant amount of influence, which I carry till today, knowingly or unknowingly, is unlike Abha, Abha said a little while ago that she's unable to find anybody specific that she can cite from media as a role model. I won't say this person was a role model for me, but I learned a lot watching him from close quarters. I had the opportunity to work with him very closely, and that is Mr. Subhash Chandra. So how, as an entrepreneur who dreamt of businesses, impossible ideas that he could translate, and he could bring together people from diverse walks of life and diverse countries, that was a fascinating phase, the 90s and up to, I would say, 2000, that era. And those are the learnings in my own way I have managed to imbibe. And every now and then, when there is an issue, there is a problem that you want to overcome, some of those experiences that we had together, those have been really handy. So for the young people who are there in the audience, if they were to be looking at perfecting themselves, and if they were to be charting out a course of action for themselves, I would say that a leader needs to be open in terms of listening to ideas and being able to also accept that when I made a mistake, being able to say sorry about having hurt somebody or having taken a wrong step, There's nothing wrong in saying, yes, I made a mistake, and move forward and try to correct it. Because leaders cannot be perfect. Because at the end of the day, we're all human beings. So none of us can be always perfect. So having the courage to say that I made a mistake and I would like to move on is something very, very important. Apart from the fact that, of course, you have to get up every day when you look at yourself in the mirror, you have to love yourself. You have to continuously tell yourself that you are the best person in whatever area of work that you're doing. And that's the confidence, not really being arrogant, not saying, look, I have nothing to get from anybody else. But it is that feeling of goodness within yourself, which you carry with you, that positivity. That is what is really going to bring out the goodness in you in whatever work that you're doing, whether it's social, whether it's corporate, whether it's academic. In any area, you will be able to influence others when you feel good about yourself, good within yourself, and carry forward that good thinking in whatever you're doing. And then I'm sure you will go on to making that a success.
Uma, you're saying to be happy within, and that is exactly what Anurag told us, that only when you're happy, you can be really productive. What I also liked when you said is that you mess up something, you make a mistake, the best, easiest way out is to apologize and say, yes, I messed up, I goofed up, and I need to correct this. So even accepting that we don't have to know everything about everything, and being human is what you're saying. I think that's a very important message for all of us today. So what have we done at Hope Foundation in terms of encouraging innovation and leadership? First of all, is lead by example. So all of us are encouraged to make mistakes, think ideas, try them out. They work, well and good. They don't work, put it behind us, start again. We make it a, how do you call it, and conducive environment to innovate, to try out new things. We offer rewards and recognition, and most important, collaboration within the team, within faculty, within outside the organization. And I think what I'm saying now is exactly what I heard the three of you say in the last 1 hour. Can I now quickly move to some questions which I have been receiving over here? Abba, to you, what is the advice that you would like to give budding entrepreneurs for the continuance of their startups in the COVID area? This is Professor Sandeep Patil who's asking the question.
Sure. I think, I mean, in terms of the operations, you must have, of course, already heard from so many veterans speaking about how important frugality, cost saving, and so forth is at a time like this. But I think the advice I'd like to give is don't give up. As you know, someone said to me just the other day, they said it's far more difficult to shut and restart than it is to keep going. So it may seem difficult, but this time will pass. You have to do what it takes. I mean, some industries, of course, are really badly hit, you know, and they're suffering and facing some existential questions. But to your best ability, otherwise, just you know, keep your operations really lean, try and innovate, try and pivot if you need to, you know, keep the long-term vision intact, but in the short term, if you need to pivot to sort of tap into an opportunity that you see during this time, do that. Find a way to adapt your team to something that could be more useful during this period, keep them engaged, and you know, gradually as we come out of this, then the path will emerge.
I have a question here from the audience asking me how, given the background of the philosophy, what are the initiatives that we have done so far? So I'll quickly go through it through the top of my head. For one, we've created the establishment, the Center for Research, the P.P. Chhabria Center for Research, which is actually a homage to my father. And what are we doing over there? We are working on different niche domains such as geoinformatics, artificial intelligence, cloud computing, cyber security. So far, we have had many sponsored research and consultancy projects where my faculty and my students are involved, and whatever the revenues that we earn are in a sharing mode with the faculty and the students. So it is literally like when you study and you earn at the same time. We've created a training capacity for students and faculty in, like I just said, in different core areas. We have collaborations with different universities, with educational firms, most importantly with government bodies, with the Department of Science and Technology, CIRO, and industry to keep up the pace with the work that is going on now. My most proud and most recent example is of online learning and teaching. So it is this COVID that actually pushed it down our throat. But I would like to say that in post-COVID times, March 13th, college shut, and then within a week, we were on our feet running and giving online classes. So that has been one of the most innovative uh, leadership things that we have done in recent times.
Wow.
I have a question for Uma. This is from Dr. Sidappa. Can you guide us quick ways to gain the qualities of good leader, or tell us what are important few qualities that we should have for to be a good leader? Uma?
I think during the course of today's discussion, there are many facets of leadership that have been highlighted by Anurag, by Abha. Aruna and I also spoke about some of those facets. Maybe I'll just touch upon a couple of things that maybe we didn't stress enough. One of them is actually to deal with the fuzziness. A leader is one who has to, above everything else, I mean, in today's context, when there's so much of uncertainty, we were talking a little while ago, when will the classes restart? When will employees come back? When will life become normal? We do not have answers. Nobody has clear answers for many of these questions. So in this context, if you have to run a business and you have to take decisions about so many things, should I set up a plant? Should I kill a product? Should I extend the life of a product? Should I spend on advertising? Should I not spend on advertising? Should I give increment to employees? Should I actually tell employees to continue to work from home? There are so many questions, and it is the leader who can deal with all of these fuzziness, assimilate, internalize all of the fuzziness for himself or herself, but outwardly being able to give that confidence and the messaging to the employees or to various stakeholders around that don't worry, this ship is steady and we are going to be sailing in calm seas sooner than later. That sort of an ability today is called for from a leader much, much more than in the previous times. Now, related to this fuzziness is also the huge risk-taking ability, because you are going to say, I'm going to do this rather than this. If that sort of a decision-making has to be done, and particularly in an organization context, this risk-taking ability would mean also a huge amount of monetary impact. So how do I therefore develop that ability to take risks and take the right decisions based on the facts that are there in front of me, but that would mitigate any such negative impact that may come upon the organization. So these are capabilities which cannot be taught in a classroom, I'm afraid, as I'm sure all of you would agree. But these are, you can say, mindsets that we'll have to develop. And probably we could simulate some case studies and we could put students in that sort of fuzzy environment and get them to think about how did they arrive at a decision despite the fuzziness of all the factors before them leading towards decision making. I hope that answer is helpful.
I put the same question to Abha, and then we can wrap up. We've completely run out of time. So, Abha,
Wow,
what
you know, I think I was smiling when you put it to Uma, because I was like, how's she going to answer this in 1 minute? But no, you know what I want to say is, I think everyone should go and read. This is the time to do your homework. There is so much material out there right now. whether it's books on leadership, whether it's biographies, articles. Read, because there may be something that resonates with you more closely than for someone else, for example, depending on where you're at in your career, the experiences you've had, for instance, But I do think that soft skills are also very important. I don't think people talk about it enough, so maybe I'll leave with that today, because I think a leader has to be somebody that their team members or employees can approach and and sort of be open with. I don't think a leader is all about just hitting the right numbers. Today, I think it's also equally important for a leader to be out there communicating, being on public platforms, talking about their vision, engaging with partners, team, etc., so on and so forth. So whether you want to sit at home and take some courses and develop your own soft skills, I think they would actually hold you in really good stead down the line.
Completely run out of time, and I have more questions coming up on my phone and on the screen over here, but I will have to give them a miss. And my pleasant duty to say thank you. Thank you to Uma. Thank you to you, Abha. And thank you to Anurag. He apologized because he had to be at another place at the same time. There was a clash of timing.
Do you want to take any other questions, Aruna? And we have 5-7 minutes, or do you want to wrap?
If you have the time, Uma, are you okay?
Yes, I'm okay too.
Okay.
It's been a pleasure to be part of this panel.
Okay, there is Mandar over here who's saying, was there a time when you were not sure about your passion or career? If so, how do you find the consistency to go on? Abha, you want to share?
Yeah. I've always loved what I do, and I think that is the core of it. You have to love what you do. When you love it, you're never gonna doubt it. I think there are times when all of us want to just sit back and we're like, oh, I don't like my boss, or I don't like my job, or this isn't paying me enough, or I should come up with the next big idea and become like some famous entrepreneur. But it takes time, and I think as long as you're having fun, you'll enjoy the journey.
I want to take that question,
yes,
Aruna.
Yes, yes.
Many times we get a little confused, especially in the early stage of career. We get confused between passion and goal and vision. These are all kind of mixed up, I think, somewhat. It may not be very clear for some people to articulate very clearly or to visualize in their own minds what is the goal. Where do I want to be? And when I interview a lot of people, even those who are in the 40s, very many times they've still not got clarity in their mind as to what is it that they're working towards. So there are some people like that. And then we can always say, well, you need to get that clarity in your mind. But I would think that even though you may not have that complete clarity, so long as Abha very rightly said, you enjoy what you're doing, you will start getting clarity as you go along. See, when I was studying doing my MBA, in my class, I think we were about 70 or 80 of us. When it came to this situation when you have to choose the subject in which you want to specialize, there was this gentleman called Professor P. Ghosh. He was a gentleman who had worked in HR, and those days it used to be called IR in international firms, and he had mesmerized the class, and particularly me. And when it came to saying, okay, what subject do you want to specialize in? Because I was so fascinated with several things that he described about people concept, I put up my hand, and to my surprise, I was the only person in my class who said, I want to specialize in HR. And lo and behold, our FMS said, look, for one person, we can't have HR specialization. So it's marketing or finance. So I chose marketing. But then when I started reflecting on it and said, am I just doing marketing because there's no option? Or am I going to love this? But I can tell you that I loved marketing, because marketing is also to do with people. And down the line, and today what I'm doing is all to do with people. So I'm just citing this as an example to say that you need to love. I 100% agree with Abha. You need to love what you're doing. Without that, you are not going to find happiness and goodness, as we spoke about earlier. But as you're doing that, you will evolve and you will discover what is it that I want to do more and what is it that I want to do less. And that's where the paths become very clear to you. I hope that helps.
I'm sure that would help. So I have a student here, Ravi, who's asking me this question, that risk-taking ability is what Uma mentioned. And how do I take risks in these uncertain times? Am I qualified to even think of doing that?
Well,
when you talk about risk taking, I'll just take a minute, and Abha, I'm sure you would also like to add to it.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So, when you talk about risk, it's in what context? You need to define that. I mean, if you are Mr. Modi, you have to deal with the different types of risks. If you are the Chief Minister of Maharashtra, you have to deal with COVID much more than, let's say, if you're the Chief Minister of Tripura. So you need to define the context, and each one of us in the role that we play, we will have to call the shots in that context. And then whenever we are talking about taking risks, it means that there is also mitigation strategy that you need to think about. It's not about blindly jumping in and saying, look, I am going to just swim, but I need to have something to fall back upon too, in case I'm not going to be able to succeed down this road. So that is how, when you talk about risk taking, those are the things that one needs to bear in mind and take the right thing that you feel may work at that given point of time. Abha, you may want to add.
Oh, I think you answered that really well. I don't feel like because you're sitting at home during COVID, you suddenly have to do something, out of the ordinary. It's this time, I think, just hold steady. And as Uma said very rightly, I think it is important to take chances, but first think it through. Make sure it's something that makes sense as well.
I have another student, Amit, who's asking the question. You have all said that think of what you want to do. Does it mean that whatever I have thought is written in stone, or is it okay to change my mind?
It is totally okay to change your mind. That's what I said right in the beginning. You don't have to know. Like today, you might want to study X, Y, Z, and 2 years later, you might want to do A, B, C. I think just try and keep your options open. There is something to be said for specialization, but you can still get to that a little later once you're a little bit more certain of which direction you want to go in. As Uma had said earlier, that slowly and gradually you'll kind of figure it out. But no, there's absolutely no reason to limit yourself.
Uma, what is your call on this?
I would think that for some people it is very natural to say, well, this is what I want to do. My daughter, for instance, I mean, she decided when she was in class 8 what she wants to do, and she has progressed along those lines, and she committed herself too soon to her liking also. But in today's context, there are so many avenues to experiment, to do things, to learn, and to have second and third and fourth careers. In our times, in my father's time, it was a single career. In our times, maybe 2 careers or 3 careers were okay. But in the case of young people who are entering into workforce, I would think that you have no boundaries whatsoever. You've completely unshackled yourselves. So you don't have to think of saying, well, I have to go work in a company. You can be freelancing. You could be, what we call as be part of the gig economy. And maybe 5 years later, you want to work from some other part of the world. It's such a fascinating world out there, despite Corona. And there are so many avenues. that you should really not be thinking about constraining yourself to a track. That if I were a 20-year-old, that will be the advice I'll be giving myself. And what a fascinating world to be in.
And
True.
I think that's a good note to end on, Aruna.
Totally. There was one last question which was rather interesting. Can I throw it to both of you, please? Ritu is asking this question. One incident that became a memory, the one that made you fail, but you wanted to rise up again. Any recent incident in the recent memory?
Oh, I have so many. I remember, so I was at, the reason I went from NDTV Profit to Good Times was actually because there were a lot of politics in the organization. I got married at the time and I had to take a month off. I subsequently got divorced also, it's a different story. But I had taken a month off, and when I came back to work, it was kind of like everything was different. My boss, and I kind of stuck with it. I, grin and bear it, and I was like, doesn't matter, get back into it, etc. And then one day my boss called me in and gave me some gyan about how, you're not qualified to do this and that. And I kind of looked at him and I thought, I've been here 3 years and I've been doing every single thing you've told me to. So how can you kind of turn around suddenly and tell me, but that's not the right thing, right? Anyway, I don't think there was much of a choice in the matter. I mean, Good Times was launching and they were like, no, we think you'll be great there. And I kind of thought, you know what, why not? It's okay. I'll go there and make my mark there. I actually had a brilliant year. I had so much fun. In that 1 year that I was there, I traveled all over the world and it was fabulous. I met some great people, did some amazing shows. So I had a really good time. But I then got offered a job with ET Now, and they were launching at the time, they were launching the business channel at the time. And that was my moment. I was like, I'm going back and I'm going back to business news. And soon enough, they called me to Bombay. And I remember I worked like mad at the time, crazy hours. And we were a startup team. It was a founding team, all of us. And so we, like I said, we loved it. We loved the energy. We would just be doing everything together and trying to get ready for this channel to start. And it was a great feeling and it was a great validation, because actually one of the reasons that part of the reasons why that situation had been created in my previous channel, that was deconstructed by the time that I actually joined ET, and I was sort of getting an opportunity to sort of to prove myself on a platform once again. So it was interesting to just see that things can turn around.
Uma, same question. One incident that became a memory, the one that made you fail but want to rise up again.
I'd like to answer this question a little differently.
Okay.
If I were to rewind my life and if I were to say, what is it that I could have done differently? The last 10 or 12 years of my life, which has been, which is when I have been an entrepreneur, this is a phase that I've enjoyed tremendously. I mean, it has been a lot of hard work, a lot of rethinking of one's own capabilities, potential, networking, relationship building. It's been just fantastic. So what is it that I could have done? I would love to have done differently. I should have become an entrepreneur when I was probably in my 30s at least. And then I would have enjoyed this phase longer. And the other dimension I want to talk about is the work that I'm privileged to now work upon, to focus upon, which is to do with the social sector, which is again coinciding the time that I started being an entrepreneur. So this is another thing that I enjoyed so much, tremendously, being able to think about the society's problems and being able to make that little difference every day. I only wish that I had the good fortune to think about all of these maybe 15, maybe 20 years earlier. That way, I feel my life would have been much more fulfilling. But having said that, I'm grateful for today and now and the opportunity that I'm getting to be able to make a difference. So I'm eternally grateful for this opportunity.
And I think you can constantly make new highs. You know, a lot of this is in our own head. It's kind of the goals that you set for yourself, and it's better to be a bit realistic about them. Start with smaller goals, because it's not a competition. It's not, you know, you don't have to prove it to anyone else. It's really about for your own personal fulfillment. And I think when you look at it like that, I think there are constantly new highs that you will experience, and you know, opportunities that come your way that will surprise you and give you a chance to kind of you know, do something you know, that is an experience that has an impact that you learn from, and you know, and I think all of that together is just a wonderfully fulfilling experience.
Thank you so much, Abha, Uma, and I have to say thank you to Anurag. It has indeed been a wonderful afternoon to learn from your experiences. Most importantly, to know that nothing is ready-made. There can be challenges, and to also know that it's okay to fail, and it's okay to change your mind, and it's okay to be scared. And the most important thing, what I understand from the three of you, is that be happy. It's only when you're happy that you can be the most productive. And it's only when you're happy that the traits of innovation and leadership come your way. Thank you once again for accepting our invite and giving us your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Aruna, for this lovely interactive session, and lovely getting to know you, Abha. Thank you.
Same here.
Bye-bye.
Same here. Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.